I love that part. Hello, gals, blokes, and all other folks. My name is Mortius, but if you're here, you probably already know that, because I can't imagine you clicked on me, reacting to me, unless you kind of already know me. So if you're here, thank you so very much for your support and for the support I have gotten over the last year with Epic the Musical, with my rapidly growing community, and even with my first ever music release. Now, I have had a lot of people request that I take a look through my own music to kind of share some behind the scenes insights, fun facts, and answer some commonly asked questions. And so that's kind of what we're here for today. I don't really know what the structure of this video is going to feel like. I'm kind of trying to replicate a little bit like when Peter Barber goes through his Bass Gang releases and kind of goes through the behind the scenes in that way. So obviously this isn't going to be a reaction. I have heard these songs probably far too many times at this point, but I still hope I am able to create a nice, fun, and engaging video as we kind of take a look through my recent release, the Rediscovery EP, which is, in case you somehow don't know, available on all major streaming platforms and slowly but surely trickling its way into some of the minor streaming platforms as well. I don't really have too much to say except for thank you so much if you've already been streaming the album, and if you were one of the people who requested this video, thank you for making me feel really valued that you would watch like an entire breakdown of my music like this. So I guess without any further ado, let's get right into it with the first song, Turning Point.
What can I make from the bricks that remain in the rubble you left in my chest? Did you take foundation or just decoration? How much of me really is left?
So that was one of the very first lyrics I ever wrote for this song. This general format. The lyrics were a little bit different because, of course, lyrics change a lot through the writing process. I wish I had kept the old lyric sheet so that I could share with you how it kind of started, but originally it was a little bit more of like a building bricks analogy instead of it being like a house. Like there was even a lyric about like actually using Lego, but as the song progressed, there were too many themes, and so I actually pulled the Lego theme out of it. But this was actually originally supposed to be the chorus. The like, that was going to be the chorus, which I then kind of changed once I figured out what the chorus actually was going to be, once I sort of narrowed down the theming a little bit more. But I didn't want to lose this line, and so we kind of did an untraditional where like we started with something that doesn't really show up in the rest of the song. Like this is like an intro that isn't consistent with the rest of it. Like it very much is like intro, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. But this intro never comes back, so it's not even really a verse, which is not a common song structure, but I think it worked out really well. I mean, it's the most viewed of the 3 videos on YouTube, so I'm gonna say it worked well.
Out of blueprint together we drew it, but how can I build when I don't know where you hit the
Those sort of backing vocals there, I want to highlight the...
Together we drew it, but how can I build when I don't know where you hit the
how can I build when I don't know where you hit? That is actually JP Warner as the private. I think it's technically both of us, but his is a little bit louder in the mix because I recorded these vocals at the end of a very, very fun and rewarding trip to Chicago, where I got to see Tegan Early live, got to meet her and Casper and Meadow and all these people for the first time. But by the time we got here, my voice was exhausted, which actually gave me access to some lower notes I don't normally have access to, which we will talk about later, but it did mean some of these really high notes were a little bit more of a struggle for me. So often that like, how much of me is left? Like those kind of high harmonies, I recorded, and then JP also recorded, and in the mix, it's like 30 me, 70 him, because he had much stronger vocals, because he was not at the end of a crazy week of dancing and partying and learning how much Peter Barber is incapable of letting you go to sleep at a decent time.
Cracks are increasing, who knows how much more I can take? How much more? And no, the Roman story tells the same old tale. A woman turned monstrous for the mistakes of a male.
So here we get to our first fan question. What was the thought process that led you to using the Medusa imagery and Turning Point from Sunshine Faye? So, I very much kind of try to decide on a theme for my writing and then build everything else around it. And so, as I had started, like, figuring out the, like, different bits and pieces, I was using a lot of, like, Turn Out Okay and things like that. And then I also had already written the future line, the turned you on, so you turned on me, which was a line that I was extremely proud of and that I wanted to make sure I included in the final one. So I was like, okay, like, turned you on, turned on me, like, turn out okay, all of these things. I was using a lot of turn. And so I literally went to a website and I forget what website it is, but it was a website where I could plug in a word and see common phrases. And so I literally just put in turn in one tab and turning in another. And as I looked through, it was like, well, turning point, turn the tables, turn around. A lot of things I ended up using, but one I saw was turn to stone. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I should bring Medusa into this. Because, of course, as you guys know, this song is about a sexual assault that I experienced. And in the Roman version of Medusa's tale, she had a very similar experience that led to what happened to her. And so I had already started writing some turn-based words. And so when that kind of, like, realized I could bring in turn to stone and then connect that to the verse I had already written about building something, but having it be like more masonry and foundation instead of Legos, it all just started coming together. So that's kind of the thought process behind the lyrics of this song.
But the way that people see her is only half a story. I'd have taken the Gorgon's curse over how you made me feel. I turned around and it all was.
And so this was all written after I'd already decided on that turning, like, iconography.
This was my turning point, where you turned on me, where the future was set in stone, and I feel like what was being built can't be the same.
And now we get to this kind of bridge here. I'm realizing I actually lied earlier. My bad. I said the first verse, or like the sort of weird intro was the first thing I wrote. That was the first thing I wrote for this song once I knew I was going to make it the first song of the Rediscovery EP. Technically, this is the first thing I wrote. As I was trying to consider what the third song could be, I had already written Dreamscape. I had already figured out a decent amount of good, and I was like, it needs to be 3 songs. It needs to be a 3-song EP. Which actually, I think someone asked that I had written down later. Yes, Dorima had the question, when you decided to extend it to 3 songs, where did you start with working out what the other 2 should be? So yeah, I had Dreamscape written a long time ago. I had kind of worked on Good as sort of the epilogue, and then it was like, the first song needs to tell the story. And so the reason this verse is so raw and powerful here, this sort of bridge area, is because it was the first thing I wrote for it. It was, okay, this song needs to tell the story that Dreamscape is alluding to. So I'm just going to tell the story. I'm just going to tell it how it is. And unfortunately, this is how it is. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Haha.
Turned you on, so you turned on me. I thought that we'd be fine till
I was very picky about that drum fill. I am so sorry to the lovely JP Warner for how picky I was about that one. We worked on that drum fill so many times, but I just wanted to like, like I just had this perfect vision in my mind for it. And there are a lot of things where I had a vision in mind, he did something else, and I'm like, that does the same thing. And this was one where every time he made something, I was like, that's not what I said. It was way too picky about it, but I'm so proud of how it came out. So I'm sorry, JP, but also it's very cool, so I was right.
Sorry, not sorry about what I said. I'm just trying to have some fun.
Process what you've done. I may have turned you on, but you have turned off the future. Turned around and it all was changed. My life will never be the same with my pieces rearranged. This was my turning point where you turned on me, where the future was set in stone, and I feel like what was being built can't be the same.
Alright, obviously a repeated chorus I'm not going to have as much to say about, so this is a good time for another one of the questions submitted on my Discord, which, by the way, as a reminder, I am one of the few creators in sort of our community whose Discord is not Patreon exclusive. There is a section within it that is Patreon exclusive and locked behind that ability, but the majority of the Discord is available for anyone. So if you want to be able to submit questions for things like this, or just chat with me about things, anything like that, link is in the description. Struner asked, when you went into the recording/production process, did you have a clear vision right away on what you wanted everything to sound like? Yes and no. I had some songs that were kind of inspirations for each one, so I came in saying I wanted song 1 to be very similar to like Spencer Sutherland, specifically his song Hater. Came across my For You page and I was like, that's the energy that I want to bring into this first song. This like, yeah, against the person who did this to me. The way he came in with just like that, come on now, won't you settle down? You got something to say, you should let it out. Like, he's just so sassy to whoever he's singing it to, and that was the energy I wanted to bring in. So it's kind of like almost Queen-like rock opera vibe with the high backing vocals was very much trying to emulate modern Spencer Sutherland. And so I had like song inspirations, but not necessarily exactly what I wanted them to sound like.
Memory lingers, so I'm turning it to stone. The center of my garden is where you'll be thrown. No giants to stand on, but you see what I can grow on the shoulders of a tiny man who thought that I had something he was owed.
Fun fact about this one, those low notes are actually not modified. My voice was so exhausted in Chicago that I actually had access to that range, which is very uncommon for me. That shoulders of a tiny man thought that I had something he was owed. Except I could actually fully hit it because my voice was so tired. This was actually the last verse I wrote. It was the only lyric I wrote while I was still in Chicago, and so I just recorded a simple phone recording to send off to Tegan and JP to be like, hey, what do you think of this for that last chorus or last verse we were struggling with? But when I did it, I obviously wasn't going to be just in the Airbnb with Meadow and Casper being like, no giants to stand on, you know what I mean? And so I was singing it an octave down. And then, as I was listening back to it, I was like, honestly, I feel like that lower octave really does something here. Just like, on the shoulders of a tiny man, felt more fitting than shoulders of a tiny man. Like, I wanted it to be low, but it felt inconsistent with the rest of the song. So Casper himself actually gave me the advice of, well, why don't you just do octave harmonies there? why don't you do the high octave that matches the rest of the song, the low octave that matches your vibe, and then JP can play with the mixing a little bit as it goes, which is why you can hear kind of from the beginning of this section that it's got that lower part much quieter in the mix, and then once it gets to on the shoulders of the lower part starts getting a little bit louder because I wanted to emphasize it without losing that consistent higher octave. Very proud of this section.
See what I can grow on the shoulders of a tiny man who thought that I had something he was
And then, of course, we've got the best line of the
Friends
song.
call you a bitch, but that's not fair. 'Cause even my dog knows what no means.
Boom! Oh, I've loved seeing the reactions to that line. Everyone's reaction to that line has been incredible. I know people are dying for me to talk about that line. I don't have that much to say. It was a line I thought of. I don't know where it came from. It entered my brain at some point during the writing process. And I knew I had to include it somewhere. And so that's pretty much that. There's not too much else. And this video is already getting kind of long, so I probably am just going to speed through the end here. The last questions I had for this kind of song was, when you were writing the EP, was Turning Point, Dreamscape, and Good the titles from the start, or were there other titles that changed down the line? Neither, technically. They weren't the names from the start because I had to get further into the writing process before I knew what their names could be, but they never had alternate names. Like, I choose not to name songs. Even in like correspondence with like JP and Tegan, I never came up with song nicknames. For a long time, I would literally say song 1, Dreamscape, song 3. And then it was song 1, Dreamscape, Good. And then it was Turning Point, Dreamscape, Good. So it wasn't necessarily that I had those titles from the start, but I also never had other working titles because I don't title my songs until they are ready to be titled. You know what I mean?
Turn around and it all has changed. My life
Oh, and then the kind of subtle lyric changes here.
and it all has changed.
All has changed instead of all was changed. So now, instead of I turned around and it all was changed, now I turn around and it all has changed. We're now in the present day. That was very important to me to make happen.
My life will never be the same with my pieces rearranged. This is my turning point.
And then is my, not was my.
Now my future is set in stone and I feel like what was being built can't be the
And then
same.
one final turn.
It'll
turn out okay. I wanted to get one last instance of that turn theme, that iconography, while also being able to highlight the kind of like more optimistic ending to such a heavy song. So that's all I've kind of got there. The last question I had put in this section was, were there any lyrics you came up with that you really loved but couldn't find the right home for in these songs? From Gabrielle. Not really that much. There were definitely a lot of lyrics that changed, but none that I can think of that like I was really devastated to lose. I mean, there was an entire song that was originally supposed to be on the EP that was cut that I'm probably going to release as a single later called Flightless Bird because it just didn't fit with the theming of this album. But, yeah, there's that. So, we are now going to hop into the second song. Gosh, this video is going to be long. Let's check out Dreamscape.
In a small town growing up, always thought I knew what I would do when I was on my own. Dreams big, worry small, thinking I could have it all. Don't worry, Mom, I'll still pick up the phone.
I don't really have too much I can say about that one. That beginning is pretty simple. We just wanted to start with that simple acoustic guitar. For those of you who don't know, Dreamscape was the only song that I had written prior to like 2024. I'm trying to grab my fidget and it was stuck to the table because it's magnet based. Neurodivergent representation. Whee! And then neurodivergent representation by completely forgetting my train of thought because my fidget got stuck to a magnet thing. What was I saying? Dreamscape was written, most of it was written quite a long time ago, actually. Like within a year of this event actually happening 7 or 8 years ago, I already had written some of Dreamscape, and I never expected to actually be able to finish it and be able to release it. So props so much to all of you, to Tegan, to JP, for allowing me to get that done. Cool. No specific questions, which is good, because I do have something to say about this next part that I don't know how many people have noticed.
Got a passion, got a fire, gonna do what I can do.
I love these little like drum hits here.
I'm gonna rattle the stars and the world will know me.
So, I'm gonna rattle the stars. For those of you who don't know, my favorite movie of all time is Treasure Planet. I have Rattle the Stars literally tattooed across my chest. It is something that informed who and what I became as a kid. And so, I wanted to include that in here. That was very important to me. But for those of you who know Treasure Planet, there might have been something a little familiar with it. One of the most iconic riffs in Treasure Planet is the da-na-na-na-na-na-na. That's like the Treasure Planet theme, right? The da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And if you listen here,
I'm gonna rattle the stars and the world will know me.
we did a little bit of the Treasure Planet lick there in the background vocals with the...
I'm gonna rattle the stars and the world will know me.
So, there's that kind of thing there, which is a fun little bit. This is one that I have seen no one catch, even the really eagle-eyed people with their analyses. I have not seen anyone catch this because it's only noticeable if you're watching the lyric video. But you might know, or you might notice that some of the lyrics are split weird in the video. Watch this.
I'm gonna rattle the stars and the world.
Why would there be 10 words on this page and then 2 words on the next page? That's kind of weird, right? That was an explicit request from me because I wanted to give a little bit of extra depth and meaning to this line. When you're just listening to it, these lyrics are supposed to be very upbeat, very positive. This is like still in the good part of the song. And yet, this whole song is still about what happened to me and creating solidarity with other people. And what was one of the biggest solidarity movements for the victims of sexual assault that has ever happened? The Me Too movement. For those of you who maybe are too young or not on the right social medias, the Me Too movement was basically something to remove some of the stigma around sexual assault by just being like, Me Too. Like, it's literally like you would just post Me Too on Facebook, on Tumblr, on wherever it was, just to show like, hey, you think you're alone? Look at all these people it's happened to as well. And so, even though the lyric is, the world will know me too, as like a positive thing,
I'm gonna
but
rattle the stars
after this song, the world will know me too. Not only the world will know me too, but also after this, the world will know, hey, me too. And that was important to me.
With all my dreams, I got something to believe in. I'm looking past all the possible mistakes. I'm just a kid, but I'm brighter than I seem. And now I'm looking to the future, and the world feels like a dreamscape.
Love that. I love that so much. That whole section, I don't have too much to say. As I was glancing over at my like Discord questions, I realized there was one I forgot to say, and because I forgot to write it down. So I'm so sorry that I don't remember who this is. Oop, there goes my voice. I don't remember who asked it, but there was one person who asked what my wife's favorite song was. It was Turning Point. I forgot to mention that during Turning Point. Wanted to say that here. Let's get to this part.
A little older day by day, the devil's on my shoulders, say maybe I can't make it on my own.
So, One of the questions from AJ is how much did you change / what did you change from your first version of Dreamscape to the version you put out? For the first verse, first chorus, second chorus, almost nothing. This verse, however, actually changed a lot, just because I felt like the old verses were still, like, written from a place of a little bit too much hurt for that part in the song. I didn't want to express all of the hurt before I got to the line about the betrayal, and so I kind of toned it back a little bit, and there wasn't like a reason I didn't like the old lyrics. I'd probably be able to find them if people ask in the Discord, haha. But yeah, I did end up changing quite a bit of that one to this section here for that.
Search for passion, search for love. It's all too much, yet not enough. Where's the end of all of this unknown? Find a person that you trusted, but they show.
This is probably JP's biggest change from my original image here. I wanted this section to be firm, to be angry, to be strong, to be furious. Find a person that you trusted and they show their colors true. You think that you can fight it, but that, like, it was really aggressive. He was like, no, because this chorus is aggressive. So this needs to be vulnerable. And I was like, I don't like that. And then he said, let's try it, and played it for me. And I'm like, you're a gosh dang genius, JP. He really cooked with this one. This, like, was all JP, and it made it so good. Just keeping those drums here.
You think that you can fight it, but their memories follow you.
And then this chorus.
Why are my dreams dictated by my demons? How can the past keep me presently awake? Since we were kids, we were supposed to be a team, but now I'm up at 3 a.m. just to keep you from my dreamscape.
Just wow. Just this whole section visually blows me away. The way that JP mixes it. I know it sounds probably vain for me to be like, wow, just wow to my own music, but like this part, I just can't believe it came together this well because this has been in my head and heart for over 7 years. Let me find real quick. Why are my dreams? Where was the original? Here we go. Yes. All the way back November 24, 2017 is when these were written for the first time, including this entire chorus. How cool is it that it came true? And also, this visual artist, by the way, I think stalked me because, like, not to get too personal and, like, not to dox anyone whether or not we think that they would deserve it. That's a different legal thing. But, like, how did this artist know exactly what me and the person this album is about looked like at the age we met? Like, the left with, like, the sort of slender build, bare feet, the kind of curled hair around the ears, literally looks like me. On the right, the sort of bowl cut, wider build, shoes, t-shirt is so hit. Like, genuinely, when I got this for the first time, I wanted to watch it all the way through. I got here, and I actually had a physical trauma response at seeing us as kids for the first time in a long time. And it was hard for me to see the first time, but I'm really just amazed at how successfully he managed to accidentally capture the actual likeness of these two real life people 22 years ago. So props to this artist for accidentally sending me into a like backstory spiral, but it was really, really well done. And now, and why do we let these past go steal our future too? This part was changed actually, not musically. Originally it was, why do we let... Wait, now I'm thinking of these lyrics. What was it? why do we let these things control our every move? That's what it was before, but Tegan was like, don't use the word things. Things will not connect to people on an album that's supposed to be this relatable. Let's bring some different imagery to it. And she and I worked together to stumble on why do we let these past ghosts steal our future too. And also, I actually just noticed there's a very minor lyrical error. I should go check the sheets I submitted to the streaming platforms. That's actually supposed to be these. Why do we let these past ghosts steal our future too? I never even noticed that when I was doing the checks and things like that. These lyric artists I worked with are amazing. They're linked in the description of all of these videos on YouTube. But yeah, that's supposed to be let these past ghosts. Oops.
Doesn't hurt.
And now we get to this verse, which, who was it? Dangerous Dice asked, what are your favorite lyrics? Tori asked, what's your favorite part of each song? This is it. This is every answer. This was the last thing I wrote for Dreamscape. This was the only thing I wrote, the only thing I didn't write years ago, because here's the thing. When I originally wrote this, I knew I wanted to end it positively. I knew I wanted to tell the journey that starts high, goes as low as I've ever felt, and then ends high. And I couldn't write that ending. Every time I tried, it felt fake. I kept trying to come back to the song, and that's why I never finished it. Because I think last year was the first time I ever felt like I was living in enough of a happy ending to write one. It takes a lot of time to recover, but it happens. And if you're still in those earlier stages, one day it won't hurt less, but it will hurt less often. This is the most important part of this EP for me, so let's let it play through.
Less, but it hurts less often. Finding new dreams worth getting lost in. Not yet a garden, but the seeds are sown. Mourn the you he took away. Celebrate who's here today.
Mourn the you he took away, celebrate who's here today. I wrote in the car on my way back home from my dad's house when we went and visited him. And I remember I sent it to Tegan. Hold on, the editor might cut, but I need to go find it. I got a new phone, so my old text conversations with Tegan aren't saved, so I can't actually search through that archive anymore. But I remember sending her, like, mourn the you he took away, celebrate who's here today. And her response was like, I just audibly gasped. I am gagged. Oh my goodness, or something like that. It was like 3 texts in quick succession, and I knew I had stumbled upon something really good with that one. Doesn't hurt less, hurts less often. Not yet a garden, but the seeds are sown. I remember, who was it? It was DeMills asking about the garden analogy that kind of goes throughout this. There wasn't really anything super intentional with it, honestly. It was just kind of something that organically came by, but regardless, yes. And then
to make a world a little less alone.
It was so important to me to have my friends, my allies, come in on a make a world a little less alone. And so, for those of you who don't know, yes, that is Tegan's vocals, but that is also JP in there. So that is me, JP, and Tegan all taking the little less alone verse there. And then, for this next verse, shout out to exhausted Chicago low voice. Shout out to Peter Barber, who kept me awake until like 3 a.m. on like Halloween night with way too many shots of Malort. I don't know if I should say that on my family-friendly channel, but hey, because, man, if I ever get to perform these live, I don't know how I'm gonna sing this next part, but I am so happy that I was able to go down to the deep vulnerability of this part the way I did, because just...
Life is never the same, but that doesn't make it wrong.
doesn't make it wrong. It's like right at the bottom of my range, and I'm so glad I could hit it so strongly here because we wanted this vulnerability. Especially because in the original, the final verse was supposed to have a key change. But my voice now is actually a little bit deeper than it was even like 7-8 years ago, because my voice was honestly kind of still developing, even at the later age of like 21 when like I was actually writing this originally. So the final verse was originally, instead of "'Cause now my dreams aren't muddled," it was "'Cause now my dreams aren't muddled by that demon, despite the pain, da-da-da-da-da-da-da." But I just couldn't do that without going way too like Brennan Urie scream singing, and Brennan Urie after he stopped taking care of his voice, not Brennan Urie in his peak. Hot take there maybe, but all that to say, since we had to get rid of the big up key for the final chorus, it was really important to drop to this low vulnerable point for this part so that there was still something to build to and grow to in the final chorus since we lost that key change.
One day at a time, all we do is plug along. Till the day that we sit down and turn it to a song. And now I'm gonna scream it till the whole world sings along.
So fun fact, and this actually shows something that Peter Barber talks about in a lot of his interviews. I know I'm talking about Peter so much today, but he talks about this one a lot. And it's the fact that you can fix more than people think in post, but you can't fix everything people think. So if you do a poor vocal performance, you really can't fix that in post, but you can completely change like missed notes and things like that. Fun fact,
Now I'm gonna scream it till the whole.
if you listen really close, you can hear a little bit of electrical distortion because those notes are not what I sang in the studio. It was "till the day that we sit down and turn it to a song. And now I'm gonna scream it till the whole world sings along. Now I'm gonna scream it till the whole..." And the more I listened to it, the more I didn't like it. But I realized that after I'd already left Chicago, so we couldn't rework it. And he was like, "You know what? Those notes are so close together, I might be able to just bring those 3 words up and bury it enough that you can't even notice." And really, if you don't know what you're listening for,
And now I'm gonna scream it till the whole world.
you really can't hear it. But, and now I'm gonna scream it. So "now I'm gonna" is actually sung lower than you hear it, and that is artificially pitched up just a couple of notes. Kind of a fun little behind the scenes fact there. And then my favorite thing, if you guys have ever seen my reactions, you know how much I love a good suspension, dropout, whatever you want to call it.
Sings along. 'Cause now my dreams aren't muddled by that demon. Despite the past, I'm glad to be awake.
Oh, I love that part. If you somehow don't know, my absolute favorite thing that any song or music can do is drop out the instrumentals, bring in harmonies, and then quickly bring back in the instrumentals. My number one favorite thing that any song or music can do is that. And so I had to include it somewhere, and this just felt like the perfect place.
My inner kid gets to see into me beaming when I take a look around. I am building my own dreamscape.
I love this final shot. This final shot is one of the only shots I actually asked the artist to completely redraw, because before it was kind of like a sitting arms crossed and pondering, and I'm like, nah, this ending has to be big, it has to be optimistic, it has to be beautiful. And he sent back a just paper sketch of this. He's like, "How's this?" I'm like, perfect. So props to this artist. Obviously I don't want to pick favorites. This is exclusively a compliment to this one and not an insult to the other two, but this was my favorite artist to work with. He was so professional, so talented. The visuals blew me away, literally brought me to tears at some points. I will 100%, I'll probably be using the same guy when I make Flightless Bird actually, but that's a different conversation. And then we get this kind of slowed down ending here. Ah, so lovely. Now I want to take a quick moment between these songs to answer 3 questions I got in the Discord about Tegan and JP's involvement, and how it kind of manifested, because I couldn't think of a good place to talk about it in the middle of the songs. And so Dillamancy says, how much influence did JP and Tegan have with the music/lyricism, and what was the process of including them in some of the vocals, / did you request they sing certain sections? Anything they sang in was a direct request from me, and I've already talked about where they've come in the other songs. I'll talk about it even more in Good. And then as far as the music, basically all JP. Like, I know very little about composition, instrumental composition at least. Know a lot about vocal composition. I know very little about instrumental composition. And so this was actually like 99% sure JP, or 99% of it was JP. Including, I totally forgot to say this earlier, by the way, any music that you hear that is not an instrumental guitar is a MIDI, M-I-D-I, which means that it is a purely electronic sound. It is instruments that someone else has recorded for the sake of putting it in here. Except for acoustic guitar, any of these like...
do what I can.
Hold on, where's like...
In a small town growing up.
Like that... was actually played on acoustic guitar live in studio by JP. So any other instruments you hear, the brass section we're about to hear in Good, or any of the drum fills, those are all electronic MIDIs in the thing he uses, but any of that like that, or any of the acoustic guitar in Good as well, that's all live performed by JP, so props to him. How much of the songs in terms of lyrics did Tegan and JP help with? That was a question from Spiky RP. A lot, and also not that much, because they very rarely actually like straight up just suggested lyrics. Most of the time it was just helping me bounce ideas off. I'm like, I'm trying to like figure out what to do here. And Tegan would be like, well, what are you trying to say? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to say this. So maybe I could do this. And she was like, maybe. And I was like, or I could do this. And she was like, yes, that. So she was like my idea bouncing board for themes and such. And then JP helped a lot with like refining like syllable counts and things like that. Like when I would come up with a lyric, and he would be like, ooh, musically, you probably need to cut a syllable out of the middle because it seems a little rushed and messy. What can we find that's 2 syllables instead of 3 syllables, but is a synonym to that word? So that's kind of how all of that kind of came true. And the last question about Tegan and JP here is from Sinlin, and they said, is that collaborative process something you would do again for another EP or full album in the future, or would you want to try something different? Nope, I love this. I am never going to have my music mixed by anyone except for JP. He is going to be my producer until the end of time for as long as he allows me to work with him. And then this is definitely not the last time I picked Tegan's brain for lyrics. And actually, believe it or not, she's actually not nearly as much or frequently, but we've actually done that in the opposite, where there was one time where she reached out and she's like, hey, I need some lyric help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a role reversal. All right, tell me what you're working with. And so I definitely am going to be chatting with her about that continuing in the future. So that was Dreamscape. Oh Lord, this video is going to be too long, so let's get right on into Good. All right, I had to take a real quick pause because I was actually watching Gwendy's reaction to this EP, which if you haven't seen yet, it actually really made me cry. It was really, really beautiful, some of the things she shared, so please go check it out. During that gap, I got one more question in the Discord from Silver Scribbler. How much do you think your EP could deadlift? 42. Let's do Good.
42.
I thought are getting better.
If it was not immediately obvious just from the start, I was talking about how there were some different songs that inspired the vibes of different ones. Turning Point was Spencer Sutherland. Dreamscape was Mother 3 by Timo and The Precipice by Classic Crime. This was all AJR. Specifically Burn the House Down, but really just AJR in general.
It meant that I could get some sleep. I thought that feeling stronger would mean never feeling weak. I thought that 8 years later I'd be done with therapy. And I thought that with this album done I'd finally feel at ease. Cause every happy song gives a reason to be so. But sometimes when you ask the sky for sunshine, she says no.
I love that lyric because I just love like anthropomorphizing like inanimate things like that, especially especially forces of nature. And so I just really like sometimes you ask the sky for sunshine and she says no, kind of anthropomorphizing that in a way. And yeah, so this song is pretty self-explanatory. There's not going to be a lot of like necessarily deep lyricism to hop into, you know what I mean? But the whole point of it is just kind of like, you don't always have to have a reason to be happy. You can make your own happiness. And the problem is all the cliches that I talk about later in the song and every happy song gives a reason to be so. Every time it's like, well, look at this. Well, look at this. Find your silver lining. This, that. And it's like, hey, don't you think that sucks when someone who's been hearing that their whole life is in a situation that genuinely doesn't have an upside? Oh, well, you can always find an upside. No, you can't. Not always. And you can still feel G.O.O.D good. And maybe that's the point.
You wake up and
I thought that was the chorus. I forgot I paused before the bridge.
But if we turn that window to a mirror, we can say, gee, I'm feeling happy as I can, and oh my Lord, I'm smiling again. The only thing could stop me is myself. I deserve feeling like I'm on the top shelf.
So there was a little while where I was actually really having a hard time figuring out what I wanted the chorus of song 3 to be. But as soon as I thought about the spelling out thing, I actually went through a ton of different potential words. I did like joy, happy, good, love. Like I went through a bunch of different iterations of possibilities and I like wrote them out. I found a website that was like words that start with a sound. And so I put like J-E-E as like the phonetic sound of G, and pretty much the only thing that came back was G or G's or things like that. And then like L, like nothing really starts with like E-L, like the L sound, except for like elephant. So jolly and love and things like that didn't really work. So it took me a while to land on this, but I'm really happy with where it went.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. G.O.O.D. Yeah, despite the descent and the world's best attempts,
I was really struggling with what to put right here. I had written the G-O-O-D, and then at this point, yeah, I'm feeling good, G-O-O-D, and then what to do there. So I mentioned before that there was a singular exception to how I answered one of the questions, which was saying that JP and Tegan very rarely just straight up gave me a lyric. Most of the time they were kind of helping me just bounce ideas off, suggesting themes, how to identify things like that. Despite the descent and the world's best attempts, straight from Tegan. She gets 100% writing credit from that. That was not from my own brain at all. I was just really having writer's block, and so the three of us sat down, we were like, what can go there? And she was like, what about just like, despite the descent and the world's best attempts, I'm feeling good. And I was like, that's so fire. I was like, can I take that just one-to-one? Because even when she had suggested direct lyrics before, I was like, that's great. Let me tweak that. And I was, for this one, I was like, can I just put that in? Because that's exactly what I'm trying to say here. And she was like, of course. So props to Tegan. Yes, they can probably hear your collar. You want to come hang out with me for good? Yeah. Normally you don't wear a collar inside during the day. Because of this exact reason where you can interrupt my reactions with your jingle jangle. But now we're having to keep the collar on you because you dug a hole under the fence and try to escape. She looked at me like, why would you tell your audience that? There's like 50,000 of them. Mwah. Do you think you can take a rest so I can finish this? We'll cuddle after, I swear. Lay down, you'll be okay. Take a nap.
G.O.O.D. good. Say God gives his toughest battles to the strongest soldier. If a war awaits, I'd like to dodge the draft, you know. They say that there's a reason all the bad things happen for, but I'm sick of these excuses, I can't take it anymore.
That verse was actually written during a TikTok live, fun fact. I was trying to write some things, so I just went live on TikTok just to kind of have some background conversations to get my brain flowing. And people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm writing music. And they're like, what is it? And it reached the point where I explained that one of the verses of my songs, even though it was still early enough in the process, I was being pretty vague about what it was trying to break apart the feel-good cliches that never actually make you feel better. The grass is greener on the other side. God gives his toughest battles to the strongest soldiers. Bad things happen for a reason. And so I asked the audience of that live, I was like, what are some feel-good cliches that you just hate? And so all three of these actually came from TikTok live suggestions, which was really cool. I wish I remembered who said what, but thank you.
Reason all the bad things happen for, but I'm sick of these excuses, I can't take it anymore. They say the grass is greener if you reach the other side.
So all of this guitar happening here is still JP live in the studio, like talked about earlier.
Water what's inside. Gee, I'm feeling happy as I can, and oh my Lord, I'm smiling again. The only thing could stop me.
And so you can hear in this the, gee, I'm feeling, oh my Lord, but also the G, O. So this verse, all of those G-O-O-D are just multiple layers of my own voice. And the reason I say for this verse, or this chorus and the first chorus, is because that changes in the third chorus, which we will talk about in a little bit. But for these first two, all of those G-O that you hear in the background, that's all of me.
Oh my Lord, I'm smiling again. The only thing could stop me is myself. I deserve feeling like I'm on the top shelf. Yeah, I'm feeling good. G-O-O-D. Yeah, despite the descent and the world's best attempts, I'm G-O-O-D.
And then this bridge is where the rest of the cliches went. The darkest days there's darkest days have a bright side, there's always a silver lining, those kinds of things.
The darkest days don't always have a bright side. Stormy clouds aren't always silver lined, and all these.
And once again, these low bits, the stormy clouds aren't always silver lined, and again was only possible because of how just purely exhausted my voice was in Chicago. But hey, it worked out to creating a really, really cool vibe. While we're in here, we did have one more question from someone named Kaylee. I don't really know who they are. I don't really see them around much. But they said, how much influence did my suggestions and the suggestions of others who got the privilege of listening to it have on the final mix? Tremendous amount. I am so grateful to everyone who gave their feedback, to helped me out, to Kaylee, to one of my close D&D friends who actually has experience with audio engineering, gave me a lot of really good feedback. It was invaluable, and it would not be the way it is without the feedback from my friends, my professional allies, and Kaylee, my incredible, wonderful editor. Thank you very, very much.
These cliches only serve to hide the fact that life can really be a bitch sometimes.
Another JP choice that was just brilliant. This part, I loved this because I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do a somber lead into the final chorus. And when I realized, because there are so many songs that will say the start of the chorus a couple of times before the end of the chorus, right? Repeat part of the chorus and then do the full chorus. And when I realized that I could do that while spelling out go, 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 I felt like the smartest person on the planet for the rest of that day. I was like, I am a lyrical genius! So I was very, very proud of this. And then, of course, we get to one of my favorite parts.
Oh my Lord, I'm smiling again.
So here we get a little change of the lyrics.
A
little breakdown.
Do the best I can. Gee, I'm feeling happy when I can. Oh, I might just need a helping hand.
Go, go, go. And so it kind of does the G, I'm, O, I'm, G these, G's, G, O, G, O, G, O, which then turns into the go, go, go into the final chorus. Except now the go, go, go and the gang vocals at G, O, O, D now include 12 different vocalists because there is now Tegan Early, JP Warner, and these 10 incredible patrons who I don't think I've like officially credited anywhere outside of Patreon yet, which I told them that would be the case going in just because actually crediting that many people legally is tricky. So like before people submitted it, I let them know there wouldn't be like official credit, but this video is your official credit. Look at these amazing people who submitted their voices. You're all amazing. So there are 12 voices, Tegan, JP, and 10 of my patrons in these gang vocals, which is just so cool to me.
And go, go, go. Gee, I'm feeling happy as I can. And oh my Lord, I'm smiling again.
And then that part is great because if you listen closely, you can hear my laugh in the background. Listen.
Happy as I can. And oh my Lord, I'm smiling again.
You can kind of hear that big like ha 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 like cackling laugh in the background. That was fully diegetic and actually happened in the recording studio because Tegan and I forget what jokes we were making, but Tegan and I were we were both dead tired. She was a couple days after her first ever live concert. I had been running ragged all week. We were just deliriously making just the stupidest possible jokes at each other. There was one point where she says something just so out of pocket that I started to laugh, and then JP goes, G! Oh! And we look over and realize that he had started recording for one of his gang vocal takes without us realizing it. So Tegan says something out of pocket. I start to laugh. Then I realize JP is recording and I just busted a gut, and we liked it so much that we actually kept it in. So that laughter that you hear is not only something that actually happened in studio, it's in the same wavelength as one of JP's G.O.O.D takes. So in the actual same like MP3 wavelength file as one of JP saying that is that actual laugh. It's not like even an isolated studio sound. So I just find that really cool and wanted to share it.
Could stop me as myself. I deserve feeling like I'm on the top shelf. Yeah, I'm feeling good. G.O.O. Yeah, despite the descent and the world's best attempts, I'm G.O.O.D. good.
This has been kind of a tough week. And now we get to the spoken finale. We had Cataly in the Discord, the final Discord question, ask where did the spoken section come from? It was my reaction to Jeff Castellucci's Song of Durin. So I'll try to remember to link that one in the top left up there. Otherwise, you can just search for it. Like Mortius Song of Durin. It's probably going to be the first result. But yeah, this is actual audio from one of my reactions that I thought would make a nice ending to this. So like sit down and record something like this. And I really mean every word. Recording might not be the easiest. I appreciate every one of you who allows for this to be my reality and for me to make the best art that I know how to make. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my music. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for joining for whatever you joined for. And thank you for sticking around afterwards. The fact that this gets to be my life, the fact that I am a produced musician is something I only dreamed of as a child. Like, running a YouTube channel as most of my career and income, and being a artist with 5-digit, approaching 6-digit streams on major streaming platforms would have been unfathomable dream as a child. And now it's just my life. And in a big way, that's absolutely because of all of you. So, thank you very, very much to every single one of you. A special thank you to the name scrolling on either side of the screen for being the financial side of that thanks. But even beyond that, thank you to all of you for being every single part of it. And as always, gals, blokes, and all other folks, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.